Welcome back. I bet you're exhausted. Come on in, my husband's voice greeted me as we approached our doorstep. Before I could step inside, my mother-in-law intercepted me, blocking my path with a rigid stance. Jennifer, could you run a quick errand for us? It's just a small shopping trip. After all, you're the daughter-in-law. With a curt nod, she handed me a list, the door closing firmly behind her. I'm Jennifer, a 25-year-old housewife, married to David for 2 years now. Once upon a time, I had a long-term boyfriend. We met in middle school, and our romance endured through high school and college, a solid 5 years. I thought we were on track to marry once our careers settled. But then, as my sophomore year of college drew to a close, he vanished without a trace, leaving behind a solitary message. I'm sorry. We should break up. And just like that, he disappeared from my life. I searched high and low, but his whereabouts remained a mystery, even to my closest friends. It was a crushing blow. If you're ending things, at least have the decency to tell me why, I pleaded silently. But he vanished into thin air after 5 solid years together. Acceptance seemed impossible, and moving on felt insurmountable. I wished he had just ripped the bandage off brutally, rather than leaving me hanging in limbo. Throughout the remainder of my college years, I spiraled into a cycle of self-destruction. Week after week, I drowned my sorrows in parties, earning a reputation for offering indiscriminate hugs to every guy in sight. Yet, by some stroke of luck, I never allowed things to escalate further. Perhaps it was his lingering influence that restrained me, preventing me from veering into darker territory. My longtime friends couldn't bear witnessing my downward spiral any longer. With the best intentions, they began introducing me to eligible suitors, hoping a new romance might anchor me. Each introduction brought forth quiet, steady men. But I recoiled from their advances, paralyzed by the fear of abandonment. Still, I forced myself to honor my commitments to my friends. Then, amidst the haze of doubt and fear, I encountered someone who ignited a glimmer of hope within me, David. Older and with a steadfast determination, he possessed a clarity of purpose that resonated deeply with me. I'm focused on building my career, and I seek a partner who will stand by me at home, he declared with unwavering certainty. His words resonated deeply, stirring memories of the dreams I once shared with my ex. Yes, marriage had always been a part of our plan from the outset of our relationship. We both envisioned a future together. After graduating from college, I dedicated a year to gain valuable work experience, a period of growth that I found enriching and fulfilling. Yet when the time came to fulfill my promise to David, I willingly set aside my career aspirations to embrace the role of homemaker. Our life together has unfolded with remarkable ease. David has proven to be not only loving, but also remarkably considerate. Drawing from the independence I cultivated during my time living alone, I seamlessly transitioned into managing our household. On those occasions when illness or fatigue set in, David readily assumed responsibility for the chores without hesitation. While David's career may not be glamorous, his unwavering dedication to his work is admirable. Our life together may lack the extravagance of some, but I find profound contentment in the simplicity of our marriage. As we approached our second Christmas together, my mother-in-law's call sent a shiver down my spine. "Come home for Christmas this year. We have relatives to visit," she commanded, her tone as stern as ever. Compared to my own laid-back mom, her assertiveness always left me on edge. "Of course we'll be there," I replied, attempting to mask my apprehension. Last Christmas, we opted for a trip, bypassing the in-laws since it was our inaugural year of marriage. I recalled how David had briefed his parents on our plans. Yet when the call came from his mother, it was left to me to handle. Did he struggle to assert himself with them? The looming invitation filled me with dread for the impending holiday. Despite not being intimately familiar with my husband's family dynamics, I reassured myself that it was only a 2-day affair, a manageable stint. "David, your mom called. What's the plan?" I asked, a touch of anxiety creeping into my voice. "She wants us both to come home for Christmas. There are relatives to visit, too. Remember, since we skipped last year, we thought it's only fair to spend this Christmas with them," he replied, a hint of uncertainty in his tone. With gifts in tow, we felt adequately prepared for the occasion. The drive to his parents' house was a relatively short hour and a half, yet the anticipation weighed heavily on me. It had been a while since our last visit, and I couldn't shake off the nerves. "Just relax. It's Christmas," David reassured me casually as we stepped out of the car, his easygoing demeanor doing little to ease my apprehension. As we arrived, a familiar voice called out, and David hurried over to greet the source, Emma, his cousin. She wrapped her arm around him in a playful gesture, but David quickly shook her off, a hint of annoyance flickering across his features. Emma, a year older than David, had a tendency to tease him relentlessly, a dynamic that had persisted since childhood. The first time I encountered Emma, her casual familiarity with David caught me off guard. I initially suspected she harbored feelings for him. However, I soon realized the opposite was true. Emma's teasing stemmed from their long-standing sibling-like relationship, a bond that remained unchanged even into adulthood. Despite David's exasperation with her antics, Emma extended warmth and friendliness towards me, dispelling any initial misgivings. "Jennifer, it's been ages. Let's catch up over plenty of drinks this Christmas. See you tomorrow. I've got some errands to run," Emma chirped before darting back into the house. "Great, just what we needed," David muttered, clearly annoyed by the unexpected encounter. As we stood outside, David grumbled about our luck in bumping into Emma so soon. With his parents' house in the opposite direction of where we needed to go for the relatives' gathering, he began to stride toward his family's residence, voicing his frustration. Despite the disruption, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. Perhaps Emma's brief appearance was a blessing in disguise. A timely distraction helped alleviate my nerves. With renewed determination, I followed David toward his parents' house, ready to embrace the festivities ahead. "We're back," my husband announced as he swung open the front door, only to be greeted by the hurried approach of my mother-in-law. "Welcome home. You both must be exhausted." "Come on in," she said, ushering us inside. "Hello, mother-in-law," I greeted politely, attempting to follow my husband into the house. Before I could step further, she intercepted my path. "Jennifer, could you run a quick errand for us? It's just a small shopping trip." "Naturally, as the daughter-in-law, it falls to you," she declared, thrusting a list into my hands before abruptly shutting the door behind us. Surveying the extensive list she had given me, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. It was a laundry list of items ranging from everyday essentials like olive oil and vinegar to more extravagant fare like baguettes, drinks, fruits, and even luxury items such as steak and lobster. Clearly, this shopping trip was no small endeavor. I had only visited my in-laws a handful of times and was completely unfamiliar with the area. This is quite a hefty list, isn't it? How am I expected to manage carrying all of this on my own? And what about the expenses? It seemed utterly unreasonable to assume I'd foot the bill for everything. As for my husband, who must have overheard the exchange, he remained conspicuously absent. A wave of frustration washed over me. "Hey, David, aren't you going to help out?" I called, standing bewildered outside, awaiting his assistance. To my dismay, all I heard was laughter emanating from within the house. Ah, I see how it is. I'm being disregarded, I muttered to myself, refusing to be relegated to the role of a mere housekeeper on Christmas. Frustrated by my mother-in-law's blatant demands and my husband's indifference, I made the decision to leave. Driving back home in a fit of anger, I was determined to salvage what was left of the holiday. I procured food and drinks for a relaxing Christmas at home. However, as I settled in with a beer, an unfamiliar sound emanated from my husband's belongings. Fueled with anger toward my mother-in-law, I had stormed off with my husband's luggage stowed in the car. Among his belongings was his phone, which began incessantly ringing, prompting my curiosity. I had never felt the need to snoop through his phone before, but now I couldn't resist the temptation to glance at the caller ID. It was a woman's name. As I stood frozen, the call ended, and a message notification appeared. Reading the messages displayed on the screen, I was hit by a series of short sentences that pierced through me. David, when are you coming back from the in-laws? I'm feeling jealous being here without you. I've put off seeing you for Christmas, but make sure to come to me as soon as you return. My heart sank as the reality dawned on me. My husband was cheating. In that moment, any warmth I felt toward him turned to ice. While I had previously brushed off my mother-in-law's harassment as a minor nuisance due to our infrequent encounters, discovering my husband's infidelity was an entirely different story. There was no way I could continue living in the shame of this marriage. With a sense of urgency, I attempted to unlock his phone. To my disbelief, the password was my own birthday. Using my birthday to secure a phone he's using to communicate with his mistress. The audacity. Swiftly, I gathered evidence of his affair. There was no need for a private investigator. His phone held all the damning proof I required. The exchange of messages and the contents of his photo folders painted a vivid picture of his infidelity. Now faced with the reality of his betrayal, I contemplated my next move. In a moment of boldness, I seized his phone and composed a message to his mistress. My wife has gone back to her parents' house after a disagreement, so we have the opportunity to spend Christmas together. Come over. Pretending to be him, I sent the message. Almost immediately, her reply came through. I swiftly responded with our address and awaited her arrival. She promised to be there within the hour, and true to her word, the doorbell rang just 30 minutes later. That was remarkably fast, I muttered to myself. As I swung open the door, I was met with the unexpected sight of my husband, father-in-law, and mother-in-law standing before me. Their expressions betrayed a sense of dejection. "Oh, we're back." My mother-in-law's voice carried a somber tone as she and my husband exchanged glances. "What happened to you two?" "Let us in for now," she continued, gesturing for me to step aside. With a sense of bewilderment, I ushered them into the room. As they entered, a voice caught my attention, one that didn't belong to my father-in-law. Turning toward the entrance, my eyes fell upon Emma, standing beside none other than my grandmother-in-law, my mother-in-law's own matriarch, took me by surprise with her unexpected appearance. "What brings you here?" I began, but before I could finish, she interjected, ushering us all inside. "Come on, David and you two. Jennifer," she said, her tone softened by an apology. "I'm sorry for ignoring you earlier. Jennifer and David, I apologize for any oversight on my part." Upon closer observation, both my husband and mother-in-law appeared visibly unsettled in her presence. Grandmother-in-law's piercing gaze bore down on them, a testament to her intolerance for wrongdoing and bullying. Though she could be intimidating in her directness, there was an underlying warmth to her character that endeared her to me. I had always admired grandmother-in-law for her kindness and genuine care for those around her. It turned out that Emma had confronted my husband about our absence, noticing our car missing from the parking lot. He had been lying at home, completely unaware of my departure. Emma's inquiry enraged her. She interrogated him, and in turn, he shifted the blame onto my mother-in-law. Thus, the truth about the shocking incident came to light. Grandmother-in-law, having been informed of the situation, wasted no time reprimanding them both. Even my father-in-law, who had been busy cleaning the neighborhood, was taken aback when he heard the story. Meanwhile, I had intentionally turned off my phone, rendering myself unreachable. Concerned for my whereabouts, they hurried home to find me. As we discussed the unfolding events, the doorbell interrupted our conversation once more. Unsurprisingly, it was her standing on the other side. "Emma, could you please answer the door?" I called out. In response, there was a sudden commotion followed by voices in dispute. As I observed, my husband's complexion turned pale, signaling the arrival of an unexpected guest. The tension in the room escalated, and I struggled to suppress a rising sense of amusement. The situation reached its climax as the woman my husband believed he had invited attempted to flee, only to be intercepted by Emma and ushered into the room. A collective gasp echoed through the room as everyone laid eyes on her. I too was taken aback, not just by her presence, but by her attire. A fly headpiece and a fluttering miniskirt resembling a maid's uniform. In that moment, the realization dawned on me. Was my husband involved with someone like her? The woman, under the impression that she had been invited by my husband, stood in shock, confronted by a room full of adults. "David, what's happening?" I demanded, my voice tinged with a mix of disbelief and frustration. David hesitated before reluctantly explaining. "Well, you see, this girl is, your mistress, right?" "What? How did you find out?" The mistress exclaimed, her face flushing with embarrassment as she glanced nervously between us. "Yeah, because I saw your phone. I gathered plenty of evidence, from photos to messages." "I know everything," I interjected, my tone firm and unwavering. At this revelation, the mistress let out a panicked cry, pleading for help from both David and my mother-in-law. The unexpected plea for assistance from my mother-in-law left me stunned, raising more questions than answers. What ensued was sheer chaos. Emma and I grilled my husband about the affair, while my father-in-law and grandmother-in-law sternly questioned my mother-in-law about her mistreatment of me. It was made abundantly clear to all three that their actions were utterly unacceptable. My mother-in-law was especially condemned for condoning the affair. The most shocking revelation was how my husband came to know the maid. Strangely enough, it was my mother-in-law who played a pivotal role in their encounter. She had developed an interest in maid cafes, but felt awkward attending alone, so she enlisted my husband as her companion. They bonded over their shared enjoyment of the performances and began frequenting the cafes together. Eventually leading to the affair, what baffled me even more was my mother-in-law's apparent fondness for the mistress and her willingness to turn a blind eye to it. I couldn't understand why she would allow her son's infidelity to continue unchecked, especially given the distress it caused me. With the holiday season looming, my husband and I made the difficult decision to divorce before Christmas. It was a choice mirrored by my father-in-law and mother-in-law, who also opted to end their marriage. Witnessing two divorces in one go during their time at our place was surreal. As the proceedings unfolded, the mistress trembled visibly, her demeanor reflecting a mixture of fear and uncertainty. Under Emma's watchful gaze and stern tone, she seemed to shrink with trepidation. Perhaps the notion of marriage had become a source of trauma for her, but that was no longer my concern. After reaching a settlement with my husband, the mistress, and even my mother-in-law, I reclaimed my freedom as a single woman once more. I secured a job and embraced the newfound sense of independence that came with it. Life was good, and I relished the opportunity to chart my own course forward. After the divorce, something unexpected occurred. Emma and I had developed a close bond and became drinking buddies. Today, we plan to go bar hopping together once more. As I made my way to our meeting spot, I noticed someone standing beside Emma. Could that be Emma's boyfriend? Approaching them, the man turned around, and I was stunned. It was my ex-boyfriend, the one who had vanished without a trace. He seemed equally taken aback to see me. "Emma, I'm sorry, but I have to go," I stammered, feeling a surge of emotions welling up inside me. "What? Jennifer, why?" Emma protested, clearly confused by my sudden departure. Without hesitation, I began to run, my ex calling out after me. "Jennifer, wait. Let me talk," he pleaded. But I couldn't stop the rush of emotions propelling me forward, away from the ghosts of my past. At last, the truth from the past came to light. It turned out that my ex-boyfriend's family had endured a string of hardships. His grandmother battled dementia, his father's business collapsed, and his mother suffered from exhaustion due to caregiving responsibilities. Eventually, they had relocated to the countryside to seek refuge with relatives. While his grandmother had since passed away, things had gradually settled down for them. He expressed regret for not having the courage to confide in me about their family struggles earlier. "I understand now, but you should have told me," I responded, acknowledging the difficulty he had faced. Although it was in the past, learning the truth brought a sense of closure and understanding. But the surprises didn't end there. By a twist of fate, I discovered that my ex-boyfriend now worked at the same place as Emma, and they even shared the same shift today.